Hey everybody, welcome to unit number 4. We're going to take a quick look at this week's assignments. Let me open my screen. And we are already almost halfway through. It's crazy, and yet it is true. All right, so this week we are focusing on the United States and about the variety of minority voices within the US. Of course, there are a lot of world voices as well, but we live here, so focusing on American literature makes some sense. It's also typically going to be written in English, which helps out a great deal. It's really important with literature to read it in its original. So in its original language. So that's what we're focusing on this year is the melting pot or the, the beef stew, whatever you want to call the United States. And we've got some various voices to take a look at. So let's look at the readings and resources. In the ebook, we've got some readings from several famous African American writers, Alice Walker, Ralph Ellison, and Zora Neale Hurston. Both Ellison and Hurston go back to the Harlem Renaissance. Alice Walker has been writing for a very long time and she's still active today. So you'll have three stories to read from those famous African American authors. We also have an interesting collection from Dagoberto Gilb, who was born in Los Angeles, but his family is from Mexico. And the section that you're going to be looking at in the textbook actually has three short stories and some of his own thoughts, which kind of like we had with Julia Alvarez's poems, I find really interesting to see, what the author says about their own work. And then finally, Native American writer Louise Erdrich. She is very highly regarded in literary circles. She's won an awful lot of prizes for her literature, and you're going to be reading her short story, The Red Convertible. So once you have read those, you can then tackle your discussion board for the week and then move on to the assignment. You also have a video this week to watch that's really just kind of interesting because you will get to know Alice Walker a little bit more in depth. So those are your readings and resources, and those will help you prepare for your two assignments, one discussion board, of course, as usual, and then one writing assignment. So instead of a presentation this week, some of you were stressed about that last week. This is just a normal writing assignment. Maybe it'll be feel a little bit more normal. We'll see. But let's take a look at the Unit 4 discussion board first. In this unit, we've encountered writers from the African American, Mexican American, and Native American communities. Considering popular culture, such as music, television, and movies, what cultural voices do you notice in the US? What other cultural voices would interest you? Share some examples of multicultural voices from within the larger American melting pot. You can include pictures, music, or other artifacts to support your initial post. If it's music, for example, I would definitely maybe throw the YouTube link in there so we can listen to it, that sort of thing. And then obviously your thoughts on each thing that you share. And then, of course, after Wednesday, before Sunday, you'll come back and respond to your fellow students, at least two of them. Now, with these particular responses, what did you learn about somebody you'd never seen before, that kind of thing, and maybe give some other examples to kind of help further their discussion along as well. All right, so that's your discussion board this week. And I really want you to have fun with this. I think this is going to be a really fun one. And then the written assignment, let's pull that up. Now, as usual, there's a very, very short definition here. Where you really find out the meat of the assignment is to go ahead and click on the link. The overview here is to consider your personal definition of what American culture is and explore how literature from multicultural writers fits, expands, or even sometimes contradicts the norms that we think of with American culture. So you're writing an essay in which you define and discuss what you consider American culture. Using one or more stories from the unit, analyze how the culture represented there relates to or complicates your definition of American culture as a whole. In addition to the primary sources, you might want to include additional research in defining American culture. Feel free to use critical resources relating culture directly to the literature, definitional stuff, whatever you want to do. You're not required to. You're only required to use one of the stories from the unit. But if you, obviously, with any sources that you use, you're going to want to include a references page with the full APA citations for those, as well as in-text citations for anything that you quote or paraphrase. Now, when it comes to discussing the literature itself, there's a good reminder here under the requirements. Your essay should be at least 3 full pages. That's the essay itself, not the cover page and the references page. Make sure you're citing at least one short story from the unit, and I would include at least 3 additional resources from our library. When writing about works of literature, think about the fact that you should quote from the literature often. All quotations should be integrated into your paragraph. If you attach those quotes to a sentence or a phrase of your own, it just helps it make it become more yours. You're still going to have the citation, so you're going to show that it was not your original words. Assume that your audience is familiar with the literature. So, for example, you're using stories that we have all been assigned, so you do not have to give a summary of the plot. You can just talk about the things that you want to talk about. So, focusing on the analysis of the culture and that sort of thing. There are some textbook essays that are in our textbook. I will that you might look to for some kind of inspiration, but be very careful when you're thinking about that, because all of the sample papers in the textbook are in MLA format and we have to use APA. So, don't get sidetracked by the fact that they don't have a cover page or that the references will look different. So, you're going to use APA citation for us. These should look familiar, these 2 samples. One is, of course, for the textbook itself. The other one is for a work from the textbook. So in this case, you're for sure going to need at least one that looks like the Nottage citation for Poof, but this one will be one of the short stories in this particular unit. And as usual, you have the rubric, so that'll help you kind of plot and plan how you want to put your paper together. So, as usual, if you have any questions or problems throughout the week, please, please, please reach out and I will do my best to help you. You also, of course, have access to help through the Post Library and through TutorMe and Academic Writer. There's a lot of things that you can do, even in the middle of the night. You can do some searching for help with those types of things if it's too late to contact me. But certainly reach out to me by email or whatever, and I will be happy to help you out with that as well. All right. I hope everyone has a great week, and I will see you next Monday for more fun and excitement in unit number 5.